What's up, guys? I bought another fixed blade knife for my EDC, and this one is made from Boker. The name of the knife is Boker Makri, and basically it's based off of the kukri knife. So it's gonna be like a small field edition EDC, but it's a little bit different the way it handles. So we're gonna start off from the beginning. We'll put this back in. So it's made from Boker, and the way it has it's not like it only has horizontal and vertical ways you can position this. So I would rather have it at an angle, just for me, because I feel that when you try to open this blade, oh, that's another thing. This here, there's a slight feel where you can push off and you can pull at the same time, but it's not the same with the other knives where they have their sheath where it's a little bit more pronounced. So I'd rather have this a little bit more pronounced where I can have a feel of pushing off, pushing with my thumb and pulling with my hand. The third thing about this knife, if you're gonna pull it straight directly out, because it's a blade that it's angled or it's curved, if you pull it straight out, what's gonna happen is that you see this, the blade is actually gonna catch onto this, and eventually start wearing out the sheath here. So you have to be wary about these type of knives, that kukri style blades, because they're angled this way. You can't just pull it out. You're gonna have to run the spine against the Kydex sheath so it doesn't connect. Watch. So you can see the difference. If I run the spine behind or a spine against the sheath, you'll see a lot of space. But if I just pull it out straight, you see how it catches. So that's one thing I'm noticing about these knives. So if you have this knife, you're gonna have to be really careful about it, or if you think of buying one. So another thing about this knife here is that the way the handle is here is made. By the way, this is G10, right? And you have a liner, red liner inside. So it looks pretty cool from afar. You can actually see it, because imagine dropping this somewhere and it's dark. You need some kind of contrast to see. And this thing here, the way they designed, there's like a certain feel. I don't know if you noticed kukri knives, they have something in the middle so you can kind of hold. So in some sense, this is pretty good. There's a feel to it. I mean, G10 scales are already good enough when they get wet, so it kind of resists against slipping. So this is like another added, I guess, texture to it. So we're gonna look at the knife itself, the blade. So this is actually a D2 blade. You can see it from here. This is a drop down, drop point, and has a belly here and a little bit of curve. So it's based off the kukri, right? So this here, you're gonna have to be careful. There's this type of stuff you shouldn't be stabbing with or puncturing with. Mostly it's for slashing or chopping type of stuff. I like it. I like the way the finish is, the black finish, Stonewash. This one here, though, I'm not sure too much about why they had it here. Basically, when I looked online, it says that it's what do you call that? It's made for a lanyard. But every time I see this always reminds me of the karambit. In the West, you call it karambit, but in the East, certain areas of East Asia, karambit. But there's no real purpose for it except to put a lanyard. It actually it might have reduced some of the weight here. And also I want you to focus on this too here. This actually looks pretty good, but in practicality, this actually kind of digs into your hand. So I have medium-sized hands, right? And if you notice, oh look, I got callus here. Well, if you notice that I don't like to choke up too close to the blade like this, in case something happens, like I'm dragging, pulling. I don't want my fingers to slip. So I wish they had something a little bit bigger, but the way they made it is more like a miniature karambit. So miniature kukri. So it's a little bit different, right? But if you notice though, if I'm holding the knife like this one here, will kind of dig into your hand here, and this pinky is being like how should I say it? It doesn't feel too well, but for most of the part when I use this knife, I kind of use it like this. You see how this the pinky is resting on this area here? I could either do this or this with the ring finger, and kind of do this when I cut stuff and be a little bit more precise about certain things. This stuff here, you know, you kind of use this as scraping, and it has a belly, so you kind of like a little bit of chopping, but not with this type of knife. It's the weight is not enough where you can chop really well, but I guess if you use it enough, you probably learn how to use the method. But anyway, let's go back to these two parts here. So what I normally like to do is when I'm using these fingers and kind of being more precise about like cutting things like this, well, I use this here with most knives, right? And I rest this part here against the fatty, the meaty part of my hand, so it kind of uses it as like a brace. But being that this here is a little bit more, I should say angled or sharp, I wish it kind of like rounded off a little bit. Not too much where it loses the opportunity to rest your pinky here when you're using it this way, but just enough where it doesn't cause any discomfort to your hand. So that's one thing to look at about this knife here. If you got bigger hands, and I don't know if you can feel it, but for me personally, when I use this knife a few times, it has that certain feel here that maybe you should have kind of like just left it out, or just rounded it off a little bit more, not like this. I mean, they kind of did a good job doing it already, but not enough where I feel it's comfortable in my hands. So what else? Oh, they have a number here for some reason, I don't know why, and they also have I guess they're marking for the person who made this knife. I think his name is let me see, what the heck was his name again? I think it's Kornell or Kornell Kiss. I think he made this knife or designed this knife, maybe both. But I mean, I love it because it looks like a miniature kukri knife. And every time I see something like this, a big hole, it reminds me of the karambit. But there's no real application. When I was looking at it as far online, it just says a lanyard hole. So basically, you're gonna have to use this as a lanyard. I mean, which is okay. It's the same thing. My grandparents, however, when they in the Philippines, when they had a hole like this, they'll basically use that to put it on the wall where there's like a little nail, and then they'll kind of like hook it on, and they'll take it off again whenever they need it. So every time I see a hole like this, it always reminds me of my grandparents using it as a placeholder for their knives. So G10 scale with red liner inside, and the Kydex sheet itself is pretty good, it's stable, there's no shake to it. Let's see. So let's look at the size of the blade, right? So each square is 1 inch. So I'm gonna measure it like this, somewhere in the middle where it's not too bent here, not too up, somewhere in between. So it's approximately from this blade point, from this point here to here, it's almost about 2 3/4 roughly, or 2.5 approximately. And then we're going to look at the handle from this point to this point. So I would say it's about 3.5 inches. And the thickness of the handle itself is almost 3/4 of an inch. And the blade, well, the blade, I don't know how the length and the width of the blade is exactly. I mean the thickness of the blade. So, well, anyway, if you look at the way they grind this, it's hollow grind, and basically this is like double-sided. You can be lefty or righty, so it's like not. It's not like some other knives where you feel more it's like right-handed. Sometimes they're just like the kiridashi blades. Those are that type. So I mean, this is a basic blade anyway. I kind of like it, but honestly, if you ever worked on a kukri or some kind of Asian machete, when they have this kind of shape, they have this belly. So my grandparents, when they have the machete, this has a a big belly, and then it kind of curves in like this. The way my grandparents used it, they use this inner part to like shave things off, and then they use the belly to chop stuff. Seldom that they use this, the pointed part to stab anything. They'll probably use it to what do you call that? Make holes in the bamboo or wood, just like this. It kind of whittle in, but for the most part, it's different. When you have like a kukri or whatever, like traditional style, there's a different feel to the blade. Some makers like to make the blade heavier than the handle, and most of the time, some of them are what do you call that? Rat tang instead of full tang. So this is actually a full tang. When you see the Asian blades or use Asian blades, most of them I've seen have that rat tang, and they want the blade heavier in the front instead of like balanced out. Like most people like their knives balanced between from the blade and the handle itself. But for most Asian people, like the old school, like my grandparents, they like it heavy on the top heavy, so it's easier to chop something like wood. The way they chop wood is different from like how Westerners do it, and the way they use it for gardening tool, it's different too. The way my grandparents had it, when they're doing something, let's say cutting vegetables, they'll use these 3 fingers here. They kind of like let the blade do most of the work. So they kind of like lift it up, and then when they lift it up like this, the blade will come down. The weight will actually like bring it down like this, and they don't have to use that much effort as chopping. They kind of like do this motion. So when they're cutting vegetables, sometimes like instead of using a chopping board, my grandma would use let's say for example ginger, right? So she trims a part of the ginger, like the skin off, and then she kind of like does this method to like chop little parts of the ginger off, and then it'll be like considered like dicing. So she'll kind of do this way, and then once there's like enough space in between the ginger, she'll kind of like do this, trim it off like this, and it'll fall off. If that makes any sense. So all in all, I mean, I like this blade, but honestly, I'll give this maybe 4 out of 5. So 1, I kind of wish that they were able to make this like multi-angled instead of horizontal and vertical. Maybe like be able to angle it some other way, like some of other makers. The next part is this, the draw. When you draw it out of the holster, I wish they made this a little bit more pronounced, so I can push with my thumb and pull with my hand. And whenever you do it, you're gonna have to slide the spine of the blade against the sheath, so that it doesn't touch like that against the top part of the sheath. And the other part that kind of not too fond of is this here. So maybe if they kind of round it off just a little bit on both sides, I mean, it does look cool. It gives it a certain look. But then, as far as being practical, I can feel a little bit of a hot spot around this area. Especially for me, I have medium-sized hand. If I had smaller hands, I kind of like choke up on it a little bit. Maybe it would, like, you know, say for example, kind of like had smaller hands, it probably fit for some people. But since I have medium hands, I don't like to choke up on the blade up here, and I kind of like have it somewhere like this. This will actually feel kind of awkward. Imagine if you had bigger hands, like large hands. I don't know how it is going to feel with some other people. So my thoughts, 4 out of 5. Love the finish, love the red against the black. I love this part here. On the handle, it makes it look pretty cool. This one here, as far as practical use, no. Basically, it's just for what do you call that? Aesthetics, and you just put a lanyard here, or you know, paracord, just to give it an extra flair, I guess, to it. And the Stonewash is pretty good. I like the black Stonewash. D2, pretty hardy. So I've used this to, you know, like cut a little bit of branches at my house, a little bit of cardboard. So it's okay. So if you think this video is really helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video and share with somebody else. They probably have some questions and what do you call that? Might have some ideas that, you know, might work for them or might not. So let's, well, you know what? Just to finish it off, let's see how long this thing is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 inches by 1, 2, 3 inches. All right, guys. And here we go. The Boker Makri. All right, see you guys later.